Welcome to this EDUcast. Unified Communications as a Service equals New Revenue. Sponsored by Telin, the Tech Snom, and Telecom Reseller. We're going to begin today talking about sales challenges, how you sell to a professional services business, identify your strategies for pricing, marketing, sales, and lead generation, and what's the key benefit that we see when you deal with one partnership to do all of this. Today, there's Zack Lee, Telin Vice President, and I'm Gary Audin. And let's start off with the first question, Zack. Selling unified communications as a service can be challenging. What are some of those challenges that you have experienced?
Thank you so much for the introduction, Gary. That's a great question. So talking about how do you sell to a UCaaS market or selling to professional services, really this place to start is identifying your target market and provide a solution to that type of customer. The market is being flooded with what I like to call jack of all trades. If you're selling to a broad scope of industries, you can end up shooting yourself in the foot of not being an expert in providing a solution to that specific industry. So if you're new to the market, part of selling a solution is being an expert, knowing the problems they run into, and providing a solution that is around that industry. Really, you're critiquing your offering to that industry. Increased sales reps are spamming on LinkedIn right now, phone calls with unwarranted calls. So where I like to start is differentiate yourself by coming correct with a prior knowledge of that business and industry to understand the problems for the prospecting stages while listening to the businesses specifically.
Selling to a professional service organization is different than selling to an end user. Would you identify some of those considerations?
Sure. So again, it kind of depends on which professional services industry we're talking about, but a big portion to this is going to be the work from home, work from anywhere strategies that we've seen come up in 2020. So preparing these companies for the future, and really what I say is future-proofing these companies' technology, is the best way to approach it. So lots of people are utilizing things like video conferencing much heavier than they were back in 2019. Not to say that it was not on the rise as a popular product or popular feature, but it has significantly increased in demand. So really being able to target those solutions to those customers, a good example of using a video conferencing solution to help those customers survive through this is at Telin. We do a virtual office through all of our sales offices across North America. This allows us to act as if we were all in the office, just using something as simple as video conferencing. In addition to that, the things have changed. So you cannot talk to your customers on site as easy as it was before. So being able to do virtual coffees or introduction where you have that face-to-face portion and you can talk to your customer over a video conferencing solution. Lastly, I would talk about the scalability portion, which is going to roll into the next slide. But scalability is huge, and being able to have a trusted, reliable system that does not have constant issues or failures, and an easy way to expand your company. So that's really where it comes into the one solution where you don't want to run into finger pointing of multiple vendors. You want to come in as the one solution so that your SIP trunk provider isn't going to point fingers at your hosting provider, or your hosting provider isn't going to tell you it's firmware on that IP phone. You really want to eliminate that risk as much as possible for that scalability, reliability, and trust portion of the solution.
You know, how you price a service to make service attractive if it's cheap enough for a lot of people. On the other hand, pricing services can be confusing and hard to understand. Would you discuss some of the pricing issues?
Great question as well. And this is where I meant the scalability portion really goes into the pricing. So where we can start is the OpEx versus CapEx model. Traditionally, a lot of VoIP companies or PBXs will sell in an CapEx model. That means capital expenditure, so there's going to be large upfront fees to buy equipment, licensing, implementation. All of that goes into that capital expenditure. And those can be very high bills. And then a lot of customers will sell it all up front and then sell a support or maintenance contract on top of that for the recurring. That is not the way that we see successful UCaaS sellers going today. What we see most profitable and most successful is the OpEx model, eliminating as much of that capital expenditure and reducing it down to a per seat or per user model that gives you a competitive advantage. That really goes into a couple statements. I'm going to try to highlight that in one of my favorite quotes. Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication, from no other than Leonardo da Vinci. And I really believe in that when it comes to pricing this type of solution. Is you don't want to introduce your customer to things that you found complicated introducing yourself in the industry, such as what is a SIP trunk, what's a DID, what are the benefits to a SIP trunk provider A versus SIP trunk provider B, and we can go into that. Really, what makes up a seat is the server, the SIP trunking, the licensing, and the support from your expertise. So I really try to eliminate those risks and risks of failure and risks of confusion by simplifying everything into an OpEx model and reducing all of those separate services into one line item fee.
Would you identify some strategies that you have seen employed successfully?
Absolutely. I don't want to be redundant too much because I talked a little bit about the use case of video conferencing and the flood of LinkedIn and things like that. But I'll expand on that by saying lead generation is a whole new world nowadays. So when you're identifying your strategies, we got to summarize our conversation so far. First step is identifying your target market, making sure that you're not a jack of all trades, as I mentioned, and creating a solution for a specific market. Additionally, utilizing your tools to generate those leads in that market can have greatly appreciated. What I mean by that is you have tools in front of you like LinkedIn. You have tools in front of you like video conferencing. So you can use these tools to generate leads, and what we've seen across our partners, a very successful approach. So LinkedIn is right now flooded with spam messages, templated messages that are just sending, trying to get business. That is not the right approach. What you want to do is personalize your message, differentiate yourself from the rest, and really provide a solution to that business. You can also use products like video conferencing to do webinars or EDUcasts like you're on today. That's something that Telin's been hugely successful with over the last year, going through what we have in 2020. So really utilizing the tools that we've adapted to date, not only for business use that we're selling to our end users, you can use the same thing to sell to your customers when you're using those unified communications tools.
Finding the right customer for what you're offering can be based on lead generation rather than cold calls. Would you identify some strategies for lead generation?
Absolutely. So lead generation, as I mentioned, has changed significantly. You really have to come in as a differentiation approach. So some things that we do as a company, and I'll give you some examples of what Telin has been successful in. Telin is a for-purpose company. So what we do is back in March, we donated 10% of our monthly revenue to the WHO and Red Cross. That was just in help to fight against the COVID pandemic and really help our society wherever we can. In addition to that, we offered free unified communication systems for 3 months. That really allowed our partners to go to the end user and give them a little bit of a break when times were tough. So those are just a few examples that really turned into an ROI for us that we didn't intend to. A lot of those customers saw us as a good company, and they continued business after we provided them a free system and got them out of what I would call a pinch. In addition to that, you want to have the brand recognition. I always talk about credibility, and repetition is a good way to do this. So repetition being continuing to post on your social medias, reach out in your social medias, doing recurring webinars, things like that from a repetition standpoint. Credibility is going to be knowing that market. So I keep talking about specifying your market to start. Create a cookie cutter approach after you've done a successful couple clients or a couple installs in that market that make you feel that you know how to provide. Now you've created a template of, all right, I learned what the problems were in the hospitality market. I provided a solution. Now let me take that same approach into professional services like law offices or multi-location businesses, and you can take that same mentality to create a lead generation strategy.
You know, leads then lead into sales. That leads us into sales strategies. Would you summarize some of the better strategies you found?
Well, in person, we put that on the slide, and I really like to highlight that as in person doesn't necessarily mean going into the person's office and having a coffee with them. As I've mentioned throughout this webinar, webinars allow you to have that face-to-face sales strategy. But talking a little bit more specifically, when you're starting out in this business, where do you start? So you have a couple of options. As I mentioned, you can go through specific industries on LinkedIn or social media tools like that, but you really got to understand where to start. A lot of the businesses watching this EDUcast are probably managed service providers, ITSPs, value-added resellers, so on and so forth. So what I mean by that is you already have a customer base, maybe for a different product, not necessarily UCaaS. So cross-selling or upselling to your current market is going to be a huge place to start. That's where we've seen a lot of success over 2020 is not only onboarding new customers, but a lot of our partners were selling on-premise systems or systems that weren't fully unified communications. So they went back to their customers, upsold them on a product that covered their needs so they can work from home or work from anywhere and getting business that way. Cold calling is absolutely not dead. Cold calling is a very successful way of selling UCaaS. It gives you the credibility of the quality on your voice lines and being able to make an introduction to a person from the comfort of your own home. So really hitting home on that work from home strategy. Lastly, I'll say is being in sales is like being a contractor. You got to have the right tools in your tool belt to be able to get the job done. So ensuring you do have those tools to create a personalized approach like a functional sales CRM, an internal knowledge base, marketing material that's easy to digest for your customers and not flooded with every single thing your company can do, but really highlighting the benefits to why you would want to work with someone like yourself. And then obviously you want to have the presentation portion of quoting tools and billing systems that don't cause your customer a headache. So really ensuring that you do have the tools to go to market before shooting yourself in the foot is going to be a huge portion to this.
Pricing is always an issue, all right? When you eventually determine the sale price for unified communication service, how should you think through the process of developing the price?
Well, that's a great question. So I brought up the simplicity is the ultimate sophistication by really talking about a per seat model. So that's a little bit rudimentary, and I'm sure a lot of you understand that as if you're a successful telecom reseller already, you probably sell it that way. Now, how do you determine what your per seat price is? Well, that all depends on the value adds that you're giving. So we've highlighted a couple different pricing strategies that make up a per seat price. You can be competitor based. That's going to be going up against the very well-known conglomerates of the UCaaS market, the Ring Centrals, 8x8s, Vonage, people like that. They all have their pricing public. You can go and compare your prices to them and do it based on competitors. Markup is also something that we see significantly where you can break out all of your costs into a per seat, quote unquote, per seat model, figure out what your cost truly is per seat, create a margin that you want to make, whether that be 50, 100, 200%, whatever that is that you feel comfortable with, you can go ahead and just mark that up. The benefit to that is you're going to guarantee your margins as a business. So you're not going to be varying each month. Your books will be kept neat. You know what your costs are and you know what your revenue is. I wouldn't necessarily suggest that. I would suggest a combination of all of these with value-based, markup, competitor-based, and really doing a premium/value-added pricing. So that's where you can get your baseline from competitors, but then you really got to differentiate yourself as to why would someone want to buy the product from you versus another player in the market. And what people generally don't realize is UCaaS products are, I wouldn't say similar, but they definitely do have a lot of the same feature sets within them. So it's not necessarily feature set that's going to win you the deal because most likely if you're using a top of the line UCaaS product, you'll check those boxes. What the customer is looking for nowadays is a relationship, someone that they can trust. And that is really what I go into my basic pricing and sales strategy is the KLT factor, know, like, and trust. That is the number one rule that Telin lives by. That's the number one rule that I push to my partners. So really having that know, like, and trust feel is going to differentiate yourself. And then thinking of ways to be a premium or value add provider, a simple example of this is a private support plan. You can put a private phone number in front of them and a private email and have it go directly to a dedicated account rep. Yes, this will take up resource. Yes, this will take up time. But a simple approach like that can give you a huge leg up against the big providers out there that are just going to have a call center outsourced out of North America, and for lack of a better words, be a headache to deal with.
3CX and Telin provide unified communications as a service. How do they work together?
So 3CX, Telin, and Snom is what we call the perfect partnership. We really reduce that wholesale strategy of what I'm saying, of really reducing it down to one provider. That's what Telin does in the distribution world. So when we looked at going into distribution, we saw that a lot of the distributors are big box pushers, as they should be, and they really just treat their partners as another number in their system. We wanted to fix that approach and really go into that, what we saw successful in the end user market, and take pieces of that into the distribution. So Telin is the one provider that can provide the software, the endpoints, the servers, the SIP trunking, and we do it all under one provider with one SLA. So that's just a little bit of a high level. So 3CX is the software, the unified communications platform. Telin is the servers and SIP trunks, and then Snom and VTech are the actual endpoints that we're a distributor for.
You mentioned the word benefits. What are the key benefits of working with 3CX?
So 3CX is, when I talk about those top providers in unified communications platforms, 3CX is one of those. So if you're using 3CX, you will most likely check all of those feature set boxes your customer's looking for. They start out with having the mobility being you can work from home, work from anywhere. They not only do have the applications that are supported on most devices, Android and iOS, Windows and Mac, but they also have web clients that require no additional downloads. So you have that mobility, and you actually have a lack of a support headache, because you're not supporting local applications as much as you would with another solution. So they have that mobility to work from anywhere. They also have the scalability. So as the partner or as the reseller on the phone call or listening to this EDUcast, they don't sell on a per seat model, which a lot of the other providers do. They sell on a simultaneous call model. So you get a lot more bang for your buck, where you're going to get a 100-seat opportunity, and they might only need 16, 24, or 32 simultaneous calls, where you're not going to be paying for 100 seats, but you can charge for it. So they have that scalability portion that's instant. You can have all those extensions on there, as many as you want, as long as you have enough simultaneous calls, so they're not getting a busy signal. They also have the balance, so they have the personal and business communications on the same device. As I mentioned, applications for soft phones on both computers and mobile devices. The video conferencing and instant chat are huge portions to this, allows you to communicate internally as well as talk to your customers. So instant chat is both available on the website as well as for internal. Video conferencing, as we've talked about on this webinar, is huge. You can do webinars, internal meetings, one-on-one virtual coffees, or you can get even more creative. And if you didn't hear the example before, Telin uses 3CX video conferencing as a virtual office between all of our different offices around North America to allow our teams to be able to collaborate as if we were in the same office. There's multiple ways to get creative. We've heard real estate agents will use it to show homes. People are using it for classrooms to do virtual classrooms when schools are closed or working from home, all kinds of use cases. And I don't want to breeze past the portion that is WebRTC. Again, it's all web-based. You're not dealing with that local application support or local application compatibility issues that you do with competitive providers.
You mentioned the word support, and Telin and Snom VTech provide a number of support capabilities. Would you summarize those, especially in getting resellers trained, ready to sell the service?
Well, I'll talk a little bit about that for sure. So Telin and Snom have a great advantage. I'll start off by talking about Telin. So Telin, Snom, and 3CX are all the one provider where we provide support on all of our products. In addition, we provide an SLA that guarantees uptime. We actually guarantee up to 6 nines, which is in our contract. That's with no minimum commits or no minimum spends. What you really get from that support is broken out between pre-sales and post-sales. Pre-sales, you're going to get sales training. So as you've seen on this high-level EDUcast, we can talk at a high level. But if you want to get on that one-on-one to identify your specific strategies, you work with our team, and we'll work right from A to Z. We provide white label marketing materials, so you can take that burden off your plate just slightly. In October, we did a newsletter that included a email blast on how to sell to work from home, work from anywhere. So if you have any questions on that, sign up as a partner, and we're happy to send that email blast over to you. Bill consultation and proposal assistance. If you're stuck in a new industry or you get a large proposal that you just can't figure out how to quote, or you get a complicated bill on your plate, pass it over to us. We're happy to help out. We are 100% channel focused, so we'll never step on your toes. We are completely reseller focused and will not actually sell or talk to an end user directly. We'll help you with your 3CX Academy. And lastly, we provide those qualified lead referrals since we are 100% channel focused. That's just to help you sell. Now, once you've sold it, you're going to need that post-sale support. So we provide the tier 2 and tier 3 technical support. So we're an extension to your team. Again, we won't talk to your end customer, but we're an extension to your team for anything between A and Z. And that can be right down to you just got your new SNOM phone that you haven't tried out before and you need help provisioning it, or you have a very complicated and complex networking diagram or some type of implementation strategy that you need help with from our engineering team. So whatever it is, you have an extension directly to 3CX advanced engineers and some of the best and most recommended in the world. And I think something to note on that is we are a proactive support model. We're not trying to be break fix, where if you call us, submit a ticket, we fix it and tell you the issue's resolved. We can do that, but what we prefer is to train the trainer. So you call us, you ran into an issue, you tried a couple of steps and you're at a roadblock, you call us and we'll tell you what you did wrong and what to do in the future. SNOM pairs very well as we have an exclusive support contract with SNOM, so we support all of their devices, whether they're pre-interrupted with 3CX or not. We'll be able to provide a template and support with that. As I mentioned, they're German engineered. They have the 3-year warranty built in. They provide end user trade-in rebates. And then what's significant about Telin and SNOM is we provide market development funds to our partners. So every device that you buy from us, we provide funds into marketing, whether that's a campaign, new sales staff, new sales tools, whatever enables you to be able to sell more SNOM inevitably. Lastly, they have the MAP policy, the market advertised price. This gives you a safety net when you're going to advertise your prices. You know a competitor is not going to be advertising below X value. So with some other competitors, I won't mention any other manufacturers, but you'll go to Amazon, you'll find a 10-pack or 25-pack of that phone for close to what you're selling, or sometimes even below what your margins are. So you can eliminate that fear when you go with the SNOM product line.
I'd like to mention to our audience that there are a number of resources available, the blog, the podcast, the SNOM blog as well, to learn more about what we've been talking about. Here's the contact information for Zach and also for Pamela, who's part of the VTech SNOM environment. Thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it, and I hope to talk to you soon.
Thank you very much, Gary, and have a wonderful afternoon. Thanks for having us.